Go.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. It's us. You'll see that Static P is not here. Instead, above me is Haley, a wonderful friend of mine and very wise young lady. Actually, would you be characterized as a young lady still?
Um, I don't know. I'm 22. Does that count as
Yes.
young?
Actually, no. You're just a lady. All right. But you're not an old lady.
Sometimes I feel old.
Yeah. No, I get you. I get you. I feel old a lot too. So yep. So Static P is actually on vacation. He's gonna be on vacation for like the next 3 weeks. If you were here last week, he probably told you that, but I wasn't here because I was at a baseball game, for my son, and so it's gonna be me and somebody else, whether it's Haley or some other random. Maybe I'll just find some people and be like, "Hey, come do my stream with me."
I bet people would love that.
Yes, yes. But Haley's been with us for a long time. I remember you like from our first episodes way back like in 2018. I remember your
Yeah,
name popping up in the chat and I'm like, yeah, so and you always had such wonderful things to say in the chat. It was just such a great experience. So,
thank you.
even at your young age of however old that was back
Mhm.
then, you still had a lot of wisdom. I don't know if that's just because you're super amazing or if you've been through a lot of garbage in your life already by that point, but it's crazy because we tend to grow more wise the more challenges we face. It stinks because we're going through challenges, but it generally tends to make us more wise. And so there is something, all of those troubles, all those things that you might be going through, they can be redeemed. They can, pull you through. If you pull through and get to the other side of this challenge, as hard as it might be, you're going to come out the other side much more wise, much more smarter, whatever. And you're going to I don't know. You will see life in a whole different perspective. That's probably the only reason I'm qualified to talk about people's problems is because I've had enough of my own to the point where I have things to talk about. But,
I think that's what can be said about most of us.
yeah, that's very true. Very true. So anyway, welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. If you're here and you'd like to say hello in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any topics, that'd be great. You can go to don'tworrywednesday.com. I boy, I should somebody should put the link in the chat, but I don't have the link in front of me. So and only mods can put links in the chat. So it's going to be me.
That's true. I'm not a mod in the chat.
No, you're not. Why are you not a mod?
That's a good question.
You're a mod everywhere else in your life. Like
You know, that's true. I'm a mod in the Discord server.
you are. That's right. Weren't you? Didn't you tell me once you were a mod in like 10 servers?
I am. It's grown since then too.
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's crazy.
People just love giving me power. I don't know
Well,
why they trust me with it, but you know what? I guess
hey,
I haven't proven untrustworthy yet, but one day when I decide to rebel, it'll be great.
you know, I have trouble picturing you as a rebel.
I wonder why.
Excuse me. Anyway, so all right. Yeah, Manglios. Saule does usually put the link in the chat for us. Where's Saule? Somebody blow up Saule's phone. Something and be like, "Where are you?" Um, but anyway, so this is our show we do on Wednesdays, and it's me and Haley, and I can't wait to hear the things that Haley has to say about these topics that we have today. Um, but we do have some topics. if you have a topic you'd like us to talk about, you can put it in the chat. You can go to our website, don'tworrywednesday.com. You can reach out on Discord. You can send us an email at dww@bss.studio. And we are not professional counselors, therapists, doctors, lawyers, police officers, or anything like that. So we're not a substitute for professional advice. If you find yourself in a situation where you need a professional, go to a professional. Um, but we just want to be your friend. We want to help. We want to offer some perspective and love and encouragement along the way of whatever it is that you're going through. And we just love you guys. That's why we do this show. That's why we've been doing it for as long as we have. It's kind of funny, we've been doing this show for like every week for like 7 years. It's about as
Yeah,
long
it's been a long time.
as it's been since I've been to the doctor. But we actually, yeah, I started doing Don't Worry Wednesday, so now I never need to go see a doctor, right? Like this.
Yeah, that's how that works.
That's
Chat, I think
exactly.
we should start a petition to get Joe to go to the doctor.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Well,
You're the one just telling them that this isn't a substitute for professional help.
that's right. I should go see a
So I don't think
professional. Is
it
that what you're
should.
saying?
Yeah, I was like, I don't think it should be a substitute for your professional help either.
Ah, yes. That's very true. Anytime I've needed a professional, I've really needed a professional. um, but anyway, so yeah. So welcome. How are you guys doing in the chat? Yeah, going to the doctor is probably a good idea if you haven't gone in a while. Yes, I know it's a good idea. People keep telling me, and I'll get there. I'm just too stinking busy right now.
You know what, though? We make times for the things we care about. If you really cared about going to the
Ooh.
doctor, you would make time for it.
Oh man. See, I don't know. Now you're just shooting truth bombs in here, like. But that's a good sign because we're gonna get the truth. So anyway, how you guys doing? How you doing today, Haley?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Joe?
Fantastic. It's been a long day. I'm a little bit out of, my brain's a little bit in left field because I've been breathing paint fumes all day. Probably another reason I need to go to the doctor. But we're gonna have some fun, and we're gonna, yeah, it's gonna be good. So
Yeah,
Haley is actually really awesome. Haley just graduated from college or
that's
university
true.
or
I
whatever you
did.
want to call it. Yep.
Hmm.
She sent me a picture. She was all graduated, had like the cap and the gown and the degree. Did it have your degree in it?
Yeah. No, it's just like the case they give you because they mail you your diploma.
Ah, I gotcha. Okay. Okay. So remind me
Mhm.
again what you majored in. Was it
I majored
biochemistry?
in, yeah, biochemistry.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. Sometimes it made me cry. But
Yes.
you know what? All good learning and growing opportunities will sometimes make you cry.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true. And it's not bad to cry. Sometimes that's the exact thing you need to do.
That's also true. A good
Mhm.
cry can be very therapeutic.
Mhm. Yep. So don't be afraid to do that once in a while. In fact, I saw a TikTok yesterday and I started crying. Probably because I was
What was the,
exhausted.
what was the TikTok?
It was these musicians. There was a guy playing an upright bass, a guy playing a clarinet, and then this little 8-year-old girl came and sang so beautifully. And I was just like, "Oh my gosh." And the way that her and the clarinet player played off each other was so beautiful. I was like, "Man." And all of a sudden I had tears in my eyes and I'm like, "Holy cow."
You
I'm
know, sometimes it happens.
I'm an old softy, I guess.
You
But that's all
know what?
right.
There's no shame in that.
Thank you. Thank you, Haley. Since Haley says so, I guess it's okay. So that's all right. But yeah, anyway, it's great to see you guys. Mianglios, August. We do have some topics here. So let's see. We have a few where they want to be here when we do the topic. We have one from Kendra, and we have one from Moonlit that they would like to be here when we do the topic, and they're also urgent. So if you guys are like here, let us know, and we'd be happy. Oh, I didn't say hi to Marhandi yet. Marhandi, welcome if you're still here watching. Um, but yeah, and then we also have another topic from who's this from? Oh, somebody named Improvement Station. I'm not sure who that is, but they have one where it's no
Good name.
preference, so we could start with this one if we wanted to. That'd be great. So, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Well, so Haley, you just graduated,
Hmm.
and you were telling me a little bit about what's next for you, because a lot of times, I mean, you're planning on going all the way to getting a PhD, an MD, stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you also, I think you had a really smart way that you were going to go about it. Um, because a lot of people just
Yeah.
jump into college and just go, 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 and you come out with a whole bunch of debt. But what was the plan that you were considering?
Yeah, so right now I'm taking a gap year before I do more schooling. But
Hmm.
then the programs I'm looking into are called MD PhD programs. So it's basically you do medical school, but you also go to graduate school to get a PhD. It like combines the two into one, and
Uh-huh.
it essentially doubles your time in school. But most of those programs are funded, so they pay for your schooling, and then you also get like a stipend to cover living expenses and stuff.
Oh
So then
yeah,
when you graduate debt free, which is nice. So
yeah. Because a lot of people when they go into the medical field to get an MD or a PhD, I've heard it. They're upwards of a $500,000 in debt sometimes.
yeah, no, the doing just like medical school, you'll come out with a lot of debt. It's basically impossible to come out without debt
Mm,
unless you do something like go into the military first and then the military pays for your schooling. But
right.
yeah, but no, so those programs are nice because you come out debt free. And then also it keeps a lot of doors open because since you now have both the MD and the PhD, you can choose where you want to go from there. Like I've talked to some people and what they'll do is they will see people as a physician like a few days of the week and then the other part of their time they spend doing research. And then there's some that will just go and do research. There's some that just go on to do just being a doctor, but it leaves a lot of different doors open that
Mm,
you can choose from. And then, you could do one thing for several years, and then if you get tired of it, then you have the degrees to fall back on to go do other things.
wow.
Mm.
Well, that's a pretty smart way to go. I'd expect nothing less from you though than the smart way to go.
Yep. And yeah, what August was saying is like to investigate the funding sources. So that's one thing I'm going to be keeping an eye on during my gap year is how the funding is affected. Because, in case you guys don't know, our government has decided to attack a lot of scientific funding. Um,
Oh.
so Well, I was mentioning to Joe, I'd been talking with a Harvard professor, and originally I was probably going to go work as a lab tech for a Harvard professor during my gap year.
Mm-hmm.
But then with the government attacking university fundings, Harvard went into hiring freeze because they weren't sure what their funding situation was going to look like. And now the
Ah.
government is just actually taking away their funding, so, it's not looking great for Harvard. But,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, Harvard is now suing the government along with a bunch of other major universities, so that's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, welcome back, Marhandi. Yeah, I think
Hmm.
when I was at work today, Kyle, Ryan's brother, told me about the whole
Hmm.
Harvard situation and what was going on with all that. I think it was something about the current government was like we need to get rid of affirmative action, and so the Supreme Court decided to get rid of that, but Harvard decided they wanted to keep doing affirmative action. That's just what I heard. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
true.
there's there's like a lot of like different political stuff going on. Like
Mm-hmm.
some of it has to do with like anti-Semitism protests and things like that. But a lot of the demands the government made are essentially the government wants to have control over the university,
Mm.
and the university doesn't think the government should have control over them. So then the university says we're not going to give in to your demands.
Uh-huh.
And then the government says, well, if you're not going to let us have control, then you don't get research funding.
Well, I
But
mean, that's kind of real world situation. Like if we had investors in a company or whatever, the investors
mhm.
usually, kind of tell us what we need to be doing, you know.
Yeah. The only thing, so from what I've read, it sounds like a lot of the funding they pulled is funding that they'd already promised to Harvard. Like Harvard was already set to receive it, and like
Ah.
they'd already like assigned it to like projects and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so that's where some of the problem comes in, right? Like it would be one thing if the government was like, okay, well, we're not going to give you more funds in the future, but where they're pulling funding that was already promised, that's a little bit problematic,
Yeah.
especially because none of the reasons they listed for pulling the funding had anything to do with the scientific research, which is where like Harvard is like, well, you can't just take away our funding, especially where none of the demands actually relate to our funds.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Man, it's a big
lots of
political mess out
stuff.
there. Tell you what.
Hmm. Yeah. You know, not the best time. It's been a really rough year for applying to graduate schools. I have several classmates, super smart people. Um, so normally when you apply to grad school, you'll get accepted into several different places. Like you might get into 5 different schools,
Uh-huh.
but several of my classmates only got accepted into one school, and they even only got interviews with one school
Uh-huh.
because it's just a really rough market with all the uncertainties and fundings. Schools are being a lot more careful because the funding goes towards graduate students for one. So if you don't know if you'll have funding, then you don't know if you can have graduate students. And there's even been universities that have like they'd sent out acceptance letters and then all the funding stuff started and they rescinded all of their acceptance letters.
Whoa. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, isn't that awful?
Wow. Wow. Yeah, we definitely live in some tumultuous times. It's
Yeah,
pretty crazy out there. I'm I'm
yep.
I'm
But
I'm a little curious. August says that Trump is destroying worker safety.
I don't know much about that.
Yeah, I'm like how?
I think it's funny. In my lab, we were talking about how scientists are like some of the least politically charged people because, like we're not out there protesting. We're just working in our labs all day.
Sure. Yeah.
But we were just joking. We were like, we're like some of the least politically charged people. And then the government went and dragged us into this.
Yep. So now you're going to have scientists protesting.
Yep.
Are you going to be protesting,
Well,
Haley? You're going to be out there
you know,
with the
it would
signs?
depend. Like, I was gonna say, if your funding is pulled, then you don't have a project anymore. So I guess you might as well go protest.
Yeah, I guess, it's kind of like being on strike, except
Yeah.
you were kind of forced into it.
It's a forced strike.
Oh, okay. So he's trying to demolish NIOSH. Is that kind of like OSHA?
That's what I was wondering is if it was like OSHA.
Okay.
I don't know though.
The National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. Okay. Now I will say I have my own little beef with OSHA. I wouldn't be super sad if they all just went away. But that's kind of why we don't have any employees in the businesses I run because it's like then OSHA can't say anything. Like I can be up on a ladder on one foot, you know, hanging from a ceiling, rafter or whatever, and OSHA can be like, "You can't do that. That violates blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Dude, I own the company. Leave me alone."
Yeah. Well, I see many OSHA violations around the research labs, but you know what? We've not had any problems so far.
Hey,
And I've also never seen OSHA come and walk around our labs.
Yeah. Oh wait, yes, he is. He's having many bodies of regulation cut down on its people as well as attempting to remove requirements for safety and health. Okay, interesting. I love learning about some of this stuff, and it's funny because there's always two sides. Actually, I've learned there's always three sides to every issue. Right? There's the one side, there's the other side, and then there's in the middle where the actual truth is. So
Hmm.
depending on who you listen to, you're gonna get one side or the other side, and those are like the mainstream media outlets, right? They're gonna cause us to fight with each other. But really, a lot of times the truth is somewhere in the middle. And it's like, okay, so
Hmm.
he's getting rid of these things, blah 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 blah. Well, why? Why would he be getting rid of those things? That'd be my question. Like,
Yeah. That's always my question too, is like, okay, well, why?
right?
Because typically you don't just be like, you know what, I hate safety, let's get rid of safety.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe he's doing that, I don't know. But I think generally rational people don't just think that they should get rid of safety.
Right. Yes, we shouldn't get rid of safety. But I also know
As much
that
as we love OSHA violations.
yeah, you're right, August. It is gut wrenching to hear of people that are becoming disabled or dying based on workplace injuries and stuff like that. Um, I agree. That is tough. Um, so I guess it just I'd have to look at all the facts, and then I'd have to be like, okay, what's going on there? Why do they want to cut it? Is there some kind of abuse that's happening? And it causing things to stop? Is there like unnecessary regulation? Is there whatever? Um,
Hmm.
so I don't know. Anyway, this isn't a political show, but politics are a part of life too. So um, so it happens. But
Yep.
I would encourage anybody, whether you line up on the right or the left, um, take a little bit of time and explore the other side. I
Hmm.
try to do that. I try to get input from both sides so I can be like, "Huh, okay, they're saying that the same issue, the other side is saying this, and they don't line up usually." So it's like, okay, we got to figure out what actually is happening here. Um,
You know, that technique can be applied even like outside of politics, right? Like just with like
yes,
conflicts in relationships, you have
yes.
to like you have your side obviously, but then it's important to be able to try and listen to the other person's side too, and then you'll
Uh-huh.
start to realize, oh, well, they don't see it the same as I do, and then it can give you new perspectives.
Uh-huh. Yep, it totally can. And it's always refreshing. Like I've lined up on both sides politically, in my life, and it was so hilarious. I had this bandmate, like he was a bass player, I was the drummer, and like after practicing, we'd sit in his hot tub and just talk. And a lot of times it would devolve into politics. And at the time, I was leaning more right, and he's very far left. And so like our conversations would get very loud, but still be friendly. We still, at the end of that, we're still friends. We still love each other. And what we discovered is that, hey, Masterlay, welcome. It's good to see you. Um, what we discovered is that we pretty much want the same result. We want freedom. We want to be able to prosper. We want to, have a good world for our kids to be in. All of that. But it's weird because we're both presented with different pathways to get to the same result. And so that's when it really started to make sense to me. It's like, okay, maybe there's value in hearing both sides and figuring out, okay, which way actually is a better path. Um, so, but anyway, um, yeah, that's enough politics. What do you say we jump into a topic?
That might be kind of good considering we're like half an hour into the show.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of how it goes, though. Like we.
Well, I mean, you said we only have three topics, right? And two of them, the people want to be here.
Right. And so far, I have not seen Moonlit or Kendra
Yeah.
in
So
the
that kind of leaves
chat.
us with one topic.
We got one topic, so we're gonna we're gonna do the heck
Yeah.
out of this topic, man. It's gonna be great.
Clearly, we can make one topic last an hour and a half.
We can. We can. And if you guys have something else you'd like to talk about, feel free to put it in the chat. I guess even if it's political, we'd talk about it. Oh, Marhandi
We will
says,
give you all the insight you want in life.
all of it. That's right. All of it. Um, Heck, even if one side considers it a story and if the other does not, like PBS losing funding or Trump stating he's not sure if he has to uphold the Constitution. Uh, wow. Interesting. I've heard so many different stories about different things. It's hilarious. And
You know?
I had a friend.
Yeah.
There was this whole Supreme Court deal. And they were like, "Oh yeah, they're putting the president above the law and blah 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 blah." And it was funny because he was coming from the side of what he had heard his colleagues and the news talking about, and I hadn't heard much about it yet. So I was like,
Hmm.
you know what? I'm just gonna go read the Supreme Court decision, like actual read the court document to see what actually is in there. Now, reading court documents is not generally fun, right?
That was what we did in my research lab when we were trying to learn more about the like conflict between Harvard and the government. We went and read Harvard's like manifesto of their like lawsuit against the government.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't know. I got very well versed in legalese um,
That'll
through a handful
do
of
it.
court incidents. Yeah, and being there with friends as they went through stuff, and you know, they are
Hmm.
oh, they're a trip, man. I'll tell you what. Um, August says to consider Canada, Haley.
Consider Canada. You know,
They
I
offer
have had
funded graduate
people.
degrees.
I have had people say to go to Canada before, and you know what? I do have friends up in Canada.
Hey, do they cook pancakes?
You know, that's a good question. Clearly, that should be my question. It's like,
Yes.
will you cook me
Will
pancakes?
you cook me pancakes if I move here?
The answer's no. Sorry, guess I can't
Sorry,
move.
man. I get. uh, the Johnny Depp trial was beginner legalese training for you. Right on. Right on. It's tough though, man. I'll tell you what, when you go to court and like you're in the middle of it and you've got all this crazy feelings and you've got, like you're stressed to the max because you're facing something you got to go to court for. That's where lawyers come in so handy. Like we always, rail against lawyers and da 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 da. A lot of people do anyway. But like seriously, they're the ones who like they can present to you what's happening in a calm, straightforward, honest way and make it make sense. So like you who's in the middle of the stressful situation aren't making some kind of rash decision that turns out to work against you. It really helps to have somebody with a clear head that understands those things, and that's why I always talk about we're not a substitute for professionals because sometimes uh, you need them. And the other thing is, one of the things that I really enjoy about doing Don't Worry Wednesday is that, yeah, sometimes when you are in the middle of whatever it is you're going through, you're emotionally attached to whatever is happening. And so you might be freaking out, but you might not see the whole picture because you're freaking out. And so when you have an outside person come in and talk about it, it can really, really help clarify things and make you feel a lot more at peace as a result. So, um, also, what? Oh, we don't have a topic yet. We're not doing a topic. we're we've just been talking government stuff. Yeah, says I don't know too much about politics. I don't look at the news much, but from what I've heard, I agree that our current government is doing some bad stuff. Um, Hey,
It's funny because I also actually don't look into, like, I don't know a ton about a lot of the political stuff. So, like, I just think it's funny that both you and I just, like, don't pay much attention, but here we are talking all about it.
I know, isn't that funny? Hey, Moonlet's here. Welcome.
Ah, hello, Moonlit. You have
Moonlit,
made it.
you have a topic, and it's urgent.
We should do the urgent
And you
topic.
have the perfect person here for this topic. Haley is here, and this is about school stuff.
Ah, I know much about school stuff.
Yes, Haley, man, we're doing this at the right time. Because, yes. All right, cool. So, Moonlit, we're going to jump into your topic if that's all right. You're going to stick around? You're going to stick around and listen? Listen to the abundance of wisdom that Haley has? And then listen to me make a fool out of myself?
I'm
So,
sure you won't make a fool of yourself.
oh, I'm so good at it, though, Haley. Come on. You know this.
No, aren't we all?
You've known me long enough.
Yes, I've known you long enough to know that you have much wisdom to
that,
offer.
that I can make a huge fool out of myself.
And that you'll sell hamburgers to the chat.
No, I won't do that. You
No,
have been deceived.
but they always want you to sell burgers.
They do, but I'm not gonna. I can't ship perishable items. I'm not equipped for that.
I mean, you just said you started a like cabinet making business. Why not start the hamburger business too?
Well, the cabinet making business, we had a bunch of equipment that would help us with that we got for free. So like, the situation was a little bit different. No cheeseburgers. Oh, sorry. You know what? You will be able to make yourself a way better cheeseburger than the burger I would send you in the mail. Because it'd be fresh, like for real. But all right. So Moonlit, we're gonna jump into your topic now. Haley, I think I'll just like DM this to you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. That way you can read it. What? Come on. Oh, computers, man. I'll tell you. There we go. All right. So I'm gonna put this topic up on the screen, and I'm gonna read it out loud, and you guys can read along. But this comes from Moonlit, and it's about an advanced class that Moonlit is taking. So I'll put it up on the screen here for you, and it reads as follows. So I have taken advanced higher English this year. However, I don't know if I can be bothering with the subject. The main reason is because it's an advanced higher, it has no effect upon whether or not I'll get into university. Therefore, I'm kind of wondering if I can be bothered with the amount of studying there is for the subject. It may be worth saying that I have spent a while on the projects for the course throughout the year. So, should I try for this subject or ignore it and focus more on the subjects that do matter for me to get into university? And that is from Moonlit. Moonlit, thank you so much for the topic, and I understand the conundrum. You find yourself in a school situation. You're taking classes. You're trying to get ahead, but you're also figuring out, hey, what's the point of this? If the point of the classes I'm taking now is to get me into university, and then you're in a class that isn't going to help you, um, then you can start to think, why do I even bother? I remember doing that my senior year in high school, actually. I was taking AP biology, so advanced placement biology, and I was planning on majoring in music. And so I'm like, why am I taking AP biology? Right? Like, I mean, I enjoyed it for the most part. The thing that finally at the end I ended up leaving that class after it was before the first semester ended. Um mainly because I didn't get along with the teacher very well. But but the other reason was I'm like, okay, this is biology, like, and science has always interested me. I've always been into it, but like I was planning on majoring in music, and so it really didn't have much bearing on what I was going to do. So, I mean, I don't know what your options are in your school system as far as dropping classes and, picking up different stuff, or if that can happen, if you get penalized for that. But I don't know. I'm kind of a big proponent of saying, hey, if it's irrelevant, then why waste your time? But at the same time, is it really irrelevant? That's the thing to kind of, you got to figure out. You might have to do some soul searching to figure out, could this be relevant to me as I'm moving forward? So, um, yes, Mianglios, I think Moonlit is over in Europe. Um, so, yeah. So, anyway, with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Haley. Haley's going to talk to you about wise school stuff because Haley is very, very much a brilliant minded person. And, you know, she's just been like in the school system and like hardcore, just graduating from college, all that stuff. So, yeah. So I'm going to turn it over to Haley. So, Haley, it's all yours.
Yeah. So I will say a lot of school is learning to balance and prioritize things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So that's something I had to learn as I went through school is how to balance and prioritize things, especially because school is a lot of work and it takes a lot of mental energy. And so oftentimes we only have so much energy we can give.
Mm-hmm.
And if the workload that we've given to ourselves is more than the energy we have, then we have to start figuring out what things we want to focus on and prioritize. And so you've said that like you're taking higher English, but it's not going to be affecting whether or not you get into university, right? And so you're wondering if you should focus more on the subjects that do matter for you to get into university.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, really, it's going to come down to like where you feel your priorities lie. And so if you think it's more important for you to focus on those classes that you need to do to get into university, then honestly, I think focusing on those is great. And that doesn't mean that you should just like stop doing anything with English, right? Like, I'm not saying you should just start ignoring the class completely. I think that there's a lot of value even in classes that aren't the most important for our career. But um, it's okay having to prioritize some of the more important classes. And then after you've done what you need to do for those classes, you can see how much energy you have left. And then you can take what you have left to give and put that towards working on your English. And I think that could also be good because you said that you've spent a lot of time working on projects for the course. So if I had to guess, I'm guessing in some ways it almost feels like you don't want to give up trying on it because you've already spent so much time on it already. And I mean, it's easy to feel that way. Sometimes it's like the sunk cost fallacy. It's like, I've already put in all this time, so I need to just keep going at this point. And, I think doing it that way, where, it's not that you're just not, like, where you're just not bothering with the course, it's just that you're not making it the number one priority anymore. That
Mm-hmm.
can help ease some of the feelings you might have about, oh, but I've already put time into the course, because you're not giving up on the course. You're just focusing on what matters to you more, and then giving what you have left to give to the English course. Something I was curious about was since is there what specifically made you take advanced higher English? If did you know that it wasn't going to impact your college admissions when you chose to take it? Like, was it a class you decided you just wanted to take for fun because you like English? Um, because honestly, sometimes if it's a class we're doing for fun, it can be good to give some priority to that
Mm-hmm.
because it can help balance out the stress of some of our more important classes, and it can be a good mental break. And honestly, it just helps promote mental health. So, like for example, this last semester of college, I took astronomy. My major does not require astronomy at all. Biochemistry does not relate to astronomy at all. I took it for fun. There were many people when I was like, I'm taking astronomy for fun. They were like, why would you take astronomy for fun? But honestly, I think I just thought it was a cool subject, and so I chose to do it. And honestly, it was great. Even when some of my other classes were harder and stressful, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air where I got to learn and feel like I was learning. Let's see. You said you knew it wasn't, but you just wanted to learn the proper way to write essays. You know, that's a good reason to take the class, honestly. Um, there's writing in like essentially every field you could ever go into. People might think that if they don't choose like an English major, they're not going to write. There's a lot of writing in your future.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
as a
true.
biochem major,
Very true.
I had to take a technical writing class as part of my major. Like we have to write, and
Uh-huh.
so there's actually a lot of value in learning. But you say you did not learn, you know, that can also happen. Um, and so that's the other thing is like if you're not getting what you wanted to out of the class, then honestly, I don't think it's wrong to put your energy and effort into focusing on the classes you can get things out of. Because, sometimes classes don't live up to our expectations. I still personally don't think you should just completely start ignoring the class. I think it's good to still put some effort into it, but it definitely doesn't have to be your first priority.
Right. I agree. Sorry, I didn't realize you were going to end that quickly and that abruptly. It's like, oh.
I'm sorry, Joe.
You're totally fine. You're totally fine.
I was going to ask if you had any more wisdom that you wanted to offer with this.
Well, I think you're on the right track because really it just kind of depends, like
Hmm.
if you think that this is going to do nothing for you, then maybe consider dropping it. The question that I would have is how does if you decide to not focus on this, um, Moonlit, if you decide to switch gears and shift your focus and not pay attention to this class anymore, does that mean you're going to drop it? Or does that mean that you're going to just get a bad grade in it? Because your overall grade point could affect, you know, your ability to get into university. At least that's what it would do for us here in the United States, where
Hmm.
that's one of the reasons why I decided to drop that AP biology course was because I was not getting along with the teacher. I was to the point where I just didn't care about this class anymore. I'm like, this is going to do nothing for me. I don't even care about this. So I'm not going to do well in this class. And it was worth, like double credits. It was AP, so it took up 2 hours of the day. And so it was like twice as many credits as a normal class. And so a bad grade in that would have been pretty, uh, detrimental to my grade point average, which then could have affected a lot of other things. Now, I can't remember. I can't remember if I'd already been accepted to college or not. It's been so long ago. But and things might have been different then when I was dealing with this as well. But it was better for me to drop the class and replace it with something that I would get a better grade in, so it would protect my overall GPA. And then that way going in, I would have a higher GPA. I'd look better on paper to the people that are reviewing me to let me into university or not. But I will say, Moonlit, it was smart of you. Um, you said I knew it wasn't, but just wanted to learn the proper way to write essays, which you did not learn. It was a good thought that it's like, hey, because Haley's right, man. You're gonna be writing papers. You're gonna be writing essays. Like how? Like Haley? Did you have like a senior thesis or like a dissertation or some kind of thing that you had to do like to wrap up your college stuff?
So for my college, the major itself didn't specifically require that. So, like I said, we did have to do a technical writing class,
Okay.
and well, I guess technically we did actually have to write some kind of like reflection paper. They made us all put together a portfolio, and they had samples of writing throughout our like 4 years in the major or however long you were in the major.
Yeah.
So like when I was like a sophomore, they had us write something about like what our goals were and like what we were wanting to do in the future, and they put that in our portfolio. And then when we were in our technical writing class, we had to write um, a review paper.
Uh-huh.
So we had to like research a topic and then write a paper that basically like summarizes the research and gives some of your own thoughts on it.
Uh-huh.
And they put that in our portfolio. In a different class, we had to like choose some disease and then propose like a treatment for it based on like structure. And we
Sure.
had to write a paper on that, and they put that in our portfolio. We had to do a lot of writing throughout. And like we couldn't graduate if we didn't have our portfolio done. So there's a lot of writing for
Ah.
that. And then also one of the like really common advanced electives that is taken for my major is called like the capstone research experience.
Sure.
And one of the things you have to do for the capstone research experience is you actually have to write a paper that basically like summarizes all the research you've done.
Oh,
And so there's a lot of writing that actually goes into my major.
yeah.
You know, I can't think of a single semester where I didn't have to do any writing.
Well, yeah. That was kind of like a huge part of like every most college classes. You had essays you had to write, you had papers, you had whatever. And
Hmm.
it was like almost you're trying to just fill space with words. I remember doing some of these papers and I'm like, I don't even care. Like, but I can be super wordy. I can like fill this space with words that don't necessarily always make sense. But you know,
Yeah. No, even in like my astronomy class, half of our assignments were writing assignments, and our teacher would like have us write stuff. And so, honestly, writing is a really valuable skill, and the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So, like, even if you're not like being explicitly taught the proper way to write essays, which actually, I want to say this, there's not a proper way to write an essay. Like, the way
wait,
to write an essay, it
isn't there
varies.
like rules? Isn't there like some kind of
Well, so like here's the thing, right? There's like grammatical rules, right?
yeah.
And then in school they'll teach you a structure, right? They'll be like, "Hey, you have like your introductory paragraph and like your thesis goes at the end, and then you need to have like three main points, and then each main point should have like three subpoints, right?" That's what they teach you. They teach you that relative structure. But realistically speaking, that structure doesn't hold up all the time. Like, for
Ah.
example, for me writing scientific literature, while it is writing, it's very different from your normal, like, argumentative essay that you might be writing in a high school English class.
Uh-huh.
And, like, um, for example, I took a comparative literature class this last semester, and pretty much all of our assignments were writing.
Whoa.
And the writing we do for that class doesn't follow like a set structure. And like our teacher wasn't like he's not like, have like three main points. Our teacher would just be like, write on this prompt, and then, you just write. And so like they teach you a set structure, but then when I got to college, my college professors were all like, yeah, that structure they teach you is not always the best structure to use. And so there's actually not one proper way to write an essay.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, just being able to write essays, even if you're not like taught specifically how to write them, and then get feedback on it is valuable in of itself.
Gotcha. Yep, I would definitely go with what Haley's saying. But so okay, so Moonlit, now what do you do in this situation? Because you're like, okay, I've got this class. It's not so you're saying it has no effect on whether or not you get into the university. So like but so I would do a little bit of exploration. So if you're going to be considering leaving this course or first of all figure out if you're going to be able to drop it or um you're either going to drop it or just like fail it or get a bad grade. And then how much is of an impact is that going to have? You might need to talk to a counselor, about and just ask some of these questions. They might be a little bit confused about why you're asking these questions. These aren't normal questions in a counselor might get asked. I don't know. Um, but like, okay, so I'm trying to figure out what to do, and this isn't, gonna take me anywhere. What's the best option? And then they might be able to, in with their knowledge of the education system in the UK, and all of that, they might be able to guide you a lot better than what we can. So, um, this is one of those times when it might be good to seek a professional that can help you kind of navigate um, that whole situation. Because I think Haley said it at the beginning, like, you only have so much energy, right? You can only devote so much of your focus to certain things. And as you're getting close to wrapping up school and getting ready to go to university, it can be like you can have a lot on your plate. And so you kind of have to be selective about put where you focus your energy. I know I've been, man, that doesn't change as you get older, I find, because I've been faced with so many times where I've had to prioritize and say, okay, if I do this, then it's going to lead me down this path. And you kind of have to like make some predictions and have a little bit of foresight as far as, what's this going to do? And we don't always know what it's going to do. We can just do our best to kind of predict. In your case, you probably have people around you as teachers or guidance counselors, or maybe you can even look at if you know which university you're going to go to, if you can talk to somebody that's a staff or professor there to try and figure out how to navigate this and what's important and what's not. That might be the best way to go. Um, oh, mi Anglios, we'll see you later. Have fun at the thing you have in about a half hour. Um, so yeah, it's great to see you, buddy. Um, but anyway, Moonlit. Um, Part of it's just going to be arranging in your head, and I know that was part of your question. Like, what do I decide to do? Um, Part of it is you kind of got to figure out what path each one of those decisions is going to set you on. And do I if I decide to continue with this class, first of all, how much benefit, like you said, it's not going to help you get into university, but like Haley was talking about, there might be things that in that class that help you in all of your stuff. Even though on paper it's not going to matter, it might matter in your mind. Like the things you learn might come in handy down the road. So that's something to think about. I don't know if this higher English course has a syllabus that you can go back and review and see what kinds of things you're supposed to be learning, and then try and determine if some of that's going to help you along the way. Um, but uh, but then it comes down to balancing that with how much energy are you focused on, and is this taking energy away from stuff that's going to be more important for you as you move forward and go to university. Um, so those are some questions to ask yourself, and really just kind of. Here's the thing: I am so good at self deception. I don't know if you guys are. Haley's probably not. Um, hey, Saule, welcome. Um, yeah, Marhandi says, Moolet, you should really speak to a counselor and also seek out career service in nearby colleges to see what you can do for what career you're pursuing. Um, it's funny though. Everybody I talk to from Britain, if I like my buddy Jono, when he went to university, I kept just saying, "Hey, how's college?" And he would look at me because I was always in a video call with him. And so he'd give me this look. He'd be like, "I'm not in college. I'm in university." Because they're different in the UK, right? Like, I don't know. In the United States, they're all kind of one and the same, right? I'm going to college, which also is like, I would say when I graduated high school, I'm going to college. Where are you going? I'm going to Michigan State University. Well, that's a university, right? But it's all just considered college. And I think the place you went is called a university too, right, Haley?
Yeah, it is.
But
But it's
we all say I went to college. I just graduated from college.
yeah.
right?
We use the term interchangeably, which is kind of funny because I think they are technically different. Like if you actually look, like I think there is technically a difference, but in the US, we just don't think of them as different.
Yeah, yeah. Mula says, yeah, they do be. Yeah, they do be different. And it's true. Sometimes they're called different things. A lot of places are called universities, and I went to Michigan State University and I went to Lansing Community College, right? So I went to a college
Yeah.
and a university.
Or
And
like for me, like I went to a university, but the university is actually broken up into colleges. So like I went to
yes,
like a university, but then I technically graduated from like the College of Physical and Mathematical Sciences.
yes. Okay. Oh, okay. So over in the UK, they're completely different because one's like a stepping stone to university. So college is like a stepping stone to university. So then, Moonlit, are you currently in college then? In your pathway through school? Um, and then does it go like you get out of high school or maybe it's called secondary school, and then the next step is college, and then okay, you're in high school. All right. So are you going to be able to then skip the college step and just go straight to university? Oh, it's an option. All right. All right, that makes sense. August says if you know what subject you like but not the job, there's a government website that provides useful data on job statistics. That could be something good. Um, if they have that same thing in the UK, August, I'm assuming that you're saying there's a government website, but it's a U.S. government website. Um, so there may be a little minor differences in job statistics. Um, okay, Marhandi, college is just an associate's degree. University is everything higher, right? Now that's the way it was when I went to Lansing Community College. They did not have anything higher than an associate's degree. And it was usually like a lot of people, what they would do is they would go to LCC, right? And they would take all their basic classes, all the core classes that were requirements because they cost a lot less at a community college. But those credits are transferable to a university, and so you paid less for all the classes that you could take at a community college that then would transfer to university. So eventually it would save you some money, by doing so. I had a lot of friends that did that. Um, okay, so like says, I believe there are more requirements for an institution to be a university in the States, but I don't know what those differences are. Maybe graduate level stuff. Yeah. Um, I don't know. It's crazy, but then Haley brings up this interesting point. Like, okay, so within the university, there's all these colleges, right? When I went to Michigan State University, I was part of the College of Arts and Letters. Whatever letters mean, I don't know what that means, but but I was a music major, right? Um, so yeah, it's very interesting. But here's the thing, Moonlit. Um, you can share as much as you want in the chat, and it's totally fine. But I'll ask you, some of these things might depend on what do you plan on doing. What kind of a job do you want to do? What kind of work do you want to do? Do you have a plan for that? Because that could guide some of your decisions. Um, One of the things that's interesting, I talked to my son, and he goes to private school, and they're very very large proponents of you just go to college when you get out of high school. That's just what you do, right? Oh, you're going into sound design. All right, that's cool. I think that might be, yeah. I think Jono did music composition, sound engineering, stuff like that, and he ended up going straight to university, I think. Um, but so anyway, so my son comes to me, right, and he's talking all this college stuff, and he's getting all this input from his teachers and stuff. Now he's kind of got a little bit of advantage. He's really, really into music, and he really, really wants to be a musician, and he really wants to, release songs, and he's already released two. on Spotify and everything, and um, like, and he wants to do YouTube. He's got all these kinds of different things he wants to do, and it's like I look at him and I see his passion, I see his charisma, and I'm like, man, you really could be successful. A lot of people are like, oh, being a YouTuber, that's not a pathway to success. But it's like a lot of people have been successful. Even moderate success can, you can make a decent living with moderate success there. It's just a matter of you got to do the work. You can't just say I'm doing this and then, fluff through it. It's a lot of work. Doing video editing, filming yourself, doing all these different things. When you're recording music, that's a lot of work. He watched me as I engineered his songs and, played a bunch of the instruments on his songs. And so he got an idea for how much work this is to do this kind of stuff. But as a musician, it's funny because like his dad, me, owns a record label. So that's convenient, right? Like, but yeah. So anyway, so he comes to me and he's talking. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go to college. I want to study this and I want to study this and blah 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 blah. And it's all coming from his teachers and his counselors and everybody at the school, right? I could tell because I'm like, with the path you're going on, you don't necessarily need to take that traditional course of high school, college, or university and get a degree and whatever, because in these areas, a degree is not going to be very helpful for you. It's not going to matter. And so you can choose if you want to go to college and study stuff, that's fine. I'm happy to, support you, whatever you want to do. But I just want to let you know that it's an option. And before you just jump into something that's going to get you into a whole lot of debt later on, you might take a year or two off and try and figure out which path you want to go on. So Moonlit, if there is a solid path to doing sound design and getting and good prospects of getting a job there and all that kind of stuff from going to university, I say go for it. But also sometimes it also depends on what kind of sound design you want to do. It's lots and lots of questions, but I'm a big proponent of figuring out what it is you want to do before you just jump into college or university or whatever. Figure out what the end result, your lifestyle you want, what kind of job you want, what kind of things you want to do with your life. Figure that out first, because then when you go, if what you decide to do requires a college education or a university education, then when you go there with that goal in mind, you're going to be so much more passionate and purposeful about what it is you're doing there. You're going to have way higher chances of success. Way higher. It's one of the reasons why I admire Haley. Haley, how long did you know you wanted to be a doctor?
That's I've wanted to be a doctor since I was a child.
Okay. Has it wavered ever?
Um,
Or
Not
is it always just
really.
stay there?
There's like a few times when I like debated like what kind of like specialty I wanted to go into. Like there's one time I'd considered maybe doing like psychology or psychiatry instead of like traditional like medicine. But I mean that's still like a type of doctor, right? Like
Sure. Yeah.
just a different kind. But like so like I've thought about different like kinds of specialties, but for the most part it's always just been like, I want to go be a doctor, I want to help people and treat people.
Yeah. Yeah. So that whole time you knew, you're like, all right, this is what I want to do. And so it was a very easy transition for you to go from high school to then university. The path was set up. I'm not saying the transition was easy, but it was easy for you to figure out that this was required for your career path, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was not hard, especially because then, I have like counselors at the high school that are designed to help you, but then also like once I was accepted into university, they have counselors that are like specifically for different fields and stuff. So like when I was like first like before I even started any classes, I like went and talked to an advisor that is a pre-med advisor. Like they're specifically designed to help people that are like looking into pre-med career paths, and then they
Sure.
can give advice.
Yeah, I think my college advisor kind of bent me over a barrel a little bit. My first year, he was like he loaded me up with all these classes, and like I was so overwhelmed. My first semester, I was like, I can't do this. Like, but I didn't know, and he just put me in it, and I was like, okay, because I trusted. I was like, hey, you've been here longer, you know what you're talking about. But
Hmm.
yeah, but I wasn't prepared. And the other thing is I knew in my mind and in my heart, I knew I wanted to be a musician. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to pursue this. And so everybody told me, hey, go to the university or college or whatever and major in music. And I started to figure out that the end of that path was being a band director. That was it. Like if you were going to major in music, even if you were majoring in some kind of performance at the different colleges, all the universities that I could go to, um, that everybody was promoting, you were going to end up a band director or a college professor in music somehow. Like that was the end of that path. So all everything that was there, even though I was playing all the time, I was practicing all the time, I was getting better at my instrument, I was doing all this different stuff, but it was all leading me to a teaching job. And that's not what I wanted. And so then I, you know, didn't care about it that much anymore. And so I didn't do all that great uh my first year in at Michigan State. But anyways, it's just an interesting thing. So I would definitely look into that path. When you say sound design, what kind of job does that mean? Does that mean you're going to be doing stuff for film? Does that mean you're going to be doing stuff for, you know, for music recordings? Does that mean you're going to be what setting up, concert halls with acoustics, which has all kinds of physics in it and everything too. There's all kinds of stuff and it's exciting, but if you can figure out where you want that path to end and then with talking to counselors and advisors, they can help guide you as much as they can. Mula says, I've been thinking about it, and honestly, I don't know what type. I think the concert halls could be interesting, but I don't know. Okay. Well, if I'm telling you, like, if you go and you start studying sound design, a lot of times what'll happen as you're taking courses, you can kind of figure things out and figure out, all right, so I really like this aspect. I really like this. I like editing, soundtrack for films. I like doing music engineering or whatever it is. And once you can kind of figure that out, that makes your path a lot more clear. Does that make sense? Um, so I would encourage you to definitely do some thinking in that area and think outside of the traditional advice that everybody's giving you. Think beyond that because I know it's so weird. I don't know if it's the same over there, but here in the United States and here in Michigan where we are, it's very very prominent to they're like, "Okay, well what do you want to do for a living? What do you want to do for a job?" And somebody says, "Well, I think this." And then all they do is they say, "Okay, go to college and major in it." That's their advice. And it's like, "Okay, but like is that really the best path?" And so um August, sometimes it's fun to play around with ChatGPT just to explore what the heck is out there. Hey, that's true. That's true. Um Test out routes, college or not, fields, pay and such. Yeah, that's great advice. Um
I also, something I was thinking about is there's no shame in having to change paths. or like try, let's say you like go and you're thinking, oh, well, I want to do this, right? Maybe you'll go and you'll start learning, and then you realize that you don't actually like that path.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes we try to talk ourselves into being like, oh, but I've already like put in effort, so I need to stay with this
Yes.
path.
Yeah.
But that's not how it has to be. There's no shame in trying something out, realizing that's not what you want to do, and then switching. Or, maybe you'll try it and you'll be like, I love this. And then, great. Then you can stay with it. It's really just like a matter of like knowing yourself and then doing what's going to be best for you.
Uh-huh.
Like, in my major, my first biochemistry class was like my fourth semester, so like sophomore year winter semester. And, so at that point, you've basically put in 2 years of life already into the biochemistry major. There were people who were dropping the major after our first biochemistry class. And,
Really?
like, yeah, it was a rough class. I like to
Wow.
joke that my major was just a weeder major. Like, every class was designed to weed you out of the major.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so there were people literally dropping the major after our sophomore, after sophomore year is basically over. And so,
Wow.
at that point, it's like, well, you might be 2 years back, but ultimately, there's not any shame for that.
Uh-huh.
People all have their own paths and their own timelines. As you talk with people, like, let's say you go to university, you don't have to if that's not the best path for you, but let's say you go to university, you'll meet a lot of different people, and everyone has their own timeline. When I was a freshman, I had a TA, and he was my TA, like, for several classes, and then after a couple years, he went from being my TA to being my classmate.
Really?
Which, yeah,
That's
it was kind
cool.
of fun because it's like, I'm so used to being like, okay, if I need help, I go to my TA, and then suddenly, he's at the same level as I am. But so, everyone has their own timelines, and there's no shame in having to take time to figure it out and having to experiment.
Right.
And, sometimes you'll find the right path really early on. Sometimes it's going to take a little bit, but there's no shame in having to learn and figure that out and then change paths if that's what you feel like you need to do. And so I think just remember that ultimately it's okay to change your path, and you don't have to justify that to yourself or to anyone else. If you aren't enjoying the path you're taking, then just switch paths. And, if people try to give you a hard time about it, it's none of their business. It's not their life to control.
That's
So,
wow.
you know, I think because sometimes we put a lot of expectations on ourselves, and then sometimes we'll have perceived expectations, right? Like you might think, oh, well, I've already told my friends and family that this is what I'm doing, so like
Right.
I need to do this. But like that's not really fair to yourself. And so really, you should just focus on what feels right to you and what's going to make you happiest.
Uh-huh.
And don't put all those heavy expectations on yourself. And really, your friends and family, I'm sure that they would support you in switching paths if that's what you felt was right for you. And if your friends don't support you in switching paths, then maybe find new friends because your friends should support you.
Yes, that is
But
a good point. Why didn't I know you when I was going into college?
you
Maybe because you weren't
know,
born yet, but
that's probably true. I was probably not alive.
yeah, that could be the case. Um, August says too many people I know beat themselves up for feeling like they're not on track and on time with their education and career. But paths are a dynamic experience. That is a fantastic way to put it. And Haley, you are so right because really, I've watched a lot of people that go down the traditions because that's what everybody tells them to do. And so they follow these instructions and they end up in a place that they never wanted to really be and they're frustrated. They might make good money, but they hate what they do. They're stressed out about it all the time. And it was because they didn't take the time or they were afraid to switch paths or they didn't they just were doing what everybody said was what you're supposed to do. And
Mhm.
sometimes it works out great, sometimes it doesn't. Now in Haley's case, like you've always known this is what you want to do. So you're probably on the right path. You know? Like I would say if you've had a hunger for that for a long time, then yeah, that's great. But yeah, do not be ashamed to switch paths. And don't let anybody tell you, oh, if you switch paths, you're gonna ruin your whole career and your life. because that's the kind of stuff I heard. Like if you slip up and you change and you switch, it's just gonna wreck your life. And it was always gonna wreck my life. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Uh, you know, I've lived long enough to realize it didn't wreck my life. There are a lot of things that can wreck your life, but that's not one of them. Because you can change paths, you can switch directions, and when you finally find a path to stay on that you can be passionate about, that you can be excited for, you're going to do so much better in school. You're going to do so much better in not only just in school and university, but in your career in general. If you can find something that you're really interested in and you have a heart for, that's, you know, when it makes you come alive, that's a great spot to be. So, yep, Moonlit, I guess bottom line is I don't know what the right thing for you to do is. We've given you some stories and some, some perspectives about different things that we've experienced and, different things for you to look out for. But ultimately, it's going to be a choice of, okay, if I'm spending this energy and it's mostly wasted because it's not helping me, then maybe I should consider switching. But you also have to figure out what are the consequences of switching and then how to switch. Whether you drop it completely or just don't focus on it and take a lesser grade in that class. But those are questions that you might have to ask advisors and figure out, like how that's going to play out for you. But that's what I would do, man. And I would say keep at it. You're in a great spot. I know it can really be hard, and I know it can really be tough. But you can make it. And whatever you decide to do, I can guarantee you that it's going to require effort. And you might feel like you're pulling your hair out. How many times did you feel that way, Haley, when you were at when you
You
were in
know,
university?
there were too many. There's one semester I overworked myself, and like I was definitely in more classes than I had energy. That was a rough semester, but you know what? I made it through. And actually, I feel like I learned and grew a lot because of that semester.
Uh-huh.
Even though, like that semester, I literally like there were classes where I was like, okay, I don't have the time to put all the effort I need to into all of these classes, so I had to choose which classes I wanted to put more effort into to try and prioritize getting a better grade in those ones.
Sure.
You know, it's a hard class. It's a hard decision to do, but like you learn to make it. And then honestly, after that first semester when I didn't get all A's, it was kind of good for me because I feel like in high school, I'm so used to like always getting perfect grades, being perfect, and so you like start to put some of your value in that.
Yeah.
But that's not where your value should lie.
Yes.
And so then having my like perfect grades be ruined early on kind of helped me realize, oh, you know what? Like just because I couldn't score perfectly in these classes doesn't mean I'm any less valuable. It doesn't mean I'm not smart. Like it helped me learn and grow a lot. And then also it helped me realize, okay, I don't have the energy to put into all of these classes, especially if I wanted to do like have like a social life or have sleep and good mental health. Like
Sure. Right.
if I really wanted a day, I could have just chose to not have a social life, not sleep, and not have good mental health, and then maybe.
But then
But like,
you'd have a good grade, but at what cost?
yeah. And so you just kind of learn how to prioritize things, and then it's like it helps you realize, okay, things are still going to be okay. And
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of like it brought me a lot of peace in some ways. There were things that I still had to learn, but like it was a good experience for me. And so, a lot of times at the moment you'll feel like you're pulling your hair out, but once you come out the other side, you'll be glad that you went through it.
Yeah. I can agree with that. Um, Masterlay says, at the risk of sounding cliche, remember, not all road ends are dead ends. Sometimes they're intersections. So finishing one thing can always just be the start of something else. Very true. Very true. It's amazing because a lot of time I feel like a lot of things were presented to me as, well, that's a dead end. these things are dead ends, but you find out that they're really not. Even if they appear to be a dead end, you can take the knowledge that you learned in the process and you can start and get on another path. That's one of the beautiful things about life is that especially now with there's so many options of things to do, so many options of career paths, so many options. And you can find them. So just be mindful of that and understand even if you decide on a path and then when you get to the end of that you look back and you're like, well, that was the wrong path to take. That's not a moment to beat yourself up or like Haley was talking about. It doesn't mean you're not smart. It doesn't mean that you're, not any good. It doesn't mean you're less valuable. It just means you took a path, you made a decision, you followed it, you ended up in a place where you that wasn't where you expected to be or where you wanted to be. And so then what you can do is switch. And you're like, "All right, I learned a whole bunch in this process. Now I'm going to take this next path. And what did I learn here that I can take into the new one?" Right? Because all this learning is cumulative. You can take all the things you learned right into the next venture. I've started multiple businesses. Some of them have been successful, some of them have not been successful. But every time with every new business venture, I guess I'm kind of a career entrepreneur. But with all of these different things, I pick up and I learn something and I'm like, okay, this is what it takes to do this. This is what it takes to do this and da 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 da. And anyway, that's kind of how it goes. Anyway, Moonlit, thank you so much for the topic. Haley, did you have anything else you wanted to say about this? Or are you pretty much done?
I think I think we've pretty thoroughly covered it.
I think so too. But Moonlit, thank you. And man, I wish you the best of luck. I really hope that you can figure this out and find the right path for yourself. But like I said, even if it turns out to be the wrong decision and you figure that out, you don't have to be devastated by that. No matter how many people try to tell you that you're going to wreck your life by making a bad decision in this area or by choosing a wrong path or whatever, right? Um, so because you can always get up and try again, and who knows? I know there are a great many people in history. One, I think, okay, there was a president of the United States, Eisenhower, back in the 1950s. I was not alive then either, so I'm not that old. But um, it's amazing when
I
you
thought you
read.
were immortal though, Joe.
I mean, yeah, you're right. I am. Never mind. I was around. I was always here, and I
Yeah.
was
I mean,
always
obviously you have
29.
to be immortal if it's been 7 years since you've been to the doctor.
Right. That's what that means, right? Um, Marhani says, any chance you can play this game while we wait for the next talking point? What game? I don't know what game you're talking about, Marhani. But anyway, uh, this president of the United States, I think it was Eisenhower. He had a biography written about him, right? And there's like nothing in his biography of note until he turned like 50. And then all of the stuff that he's remembered for and known for happened. So, like, the first 50 years of his life fills up like a little smidgen of his biography. And then after he turned 50, like, the chapters got really long and detailed, and there's all this kind of stuff. So, don't don't worry about if you feel like you're moving slow. Um, it's okay. You're gonna be fine. So, oh yeah, sorry, Marhandi. You can DM it to me. You can. I don't know. Am I friends with you on Discord? Maybe.
How could you not be friends with Marhandi on Discord?
I don't know. Probably I am, but I just I've got this list of, like, oh, I'm getting a DM. Whoa, and what's going on here? No, stop. My computer freaked out for a second.
It didn't like the DM.
Oh, you want to play Winnie the Pooh's Home Run Derby
What?
on DisneyGames.com. All right. Is this a safe link? I'm gonna visit it first before I post it.
He's actually, trying to give you a virus.
I mean, it's.
He's like, you know what Joe needs in his life? A virus.
I do. I need a computer virus.
You need a computer virus.
It's
I need a
Disney.
fluorescent virus.
How would Disney ever be something bad, right? So
Right.
yeah. All right. I'll put this link here. Visit at your own risk. What the heck? There it is. All right.
Oh, it's what Flash? I don't know what Flash you're talking about.
Haley, stop flashing.
I'm flashing? Clearly,
That's that. I think
clearly
it's
it's the clearly
It's
it's the
just
fluorescent virus I secretly injected into
that's
myself.
yes, secretly. It's not so much a secret anymore. You just told us all.
Yeah.
Haley is secretly a simulation. Yes.
Yeah, actually Joe just programmed a Haley AI.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're way too much of a person to be. All right. Well, Moonlit, thank you for the topic, and hopefully some of the stuff we had to tell you is helpful for you. I wish you the best, and if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, I think you're at a point where it would definitely help to get some advice from an advisor, somebody that can kind of guide you through the system of education there. Um, but you're awesome, and whatever you decide, I know it's going to benefit you in one way or the other. And if you can maintain that attitude of, hey, if it's the wrong way, I'll just pick myself up and choose a different way. Right? So you're going to be fine. But thank you again. And yeah, we got like 20 minutes left. Boy, we did good. We talked about that for a long time.
Yeah.
Look how good we are. But we could do this next one from Improvement Station. This is called Good Habits, Bad Habits. Moonlit says, I'm technically not in school anymore since I've graduated, just exams and then hopefully off to uni based on grades. Wait a second, so you're already done? Wait. So you're no longer in this class? Did we just go through all that with something you already finished
I
with?
think what they're saying is like they have exams left to take. So like they have to pass their exams to graduate, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
I think it might be like, should I spend time, should I like actually put effort towards like finishing up this class, or should I take that time and focus on studying for my other exams?
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. At that point, it becomes a matter of priority, like we kind of spelled out, and make sure you're
Mhm.
maintaining some semblance of mental health and sleep. Um, but
Yep.
yeah, if it's to this point, you probably can't drop the class anymore. Um, but
Mental health is always more important than grades.
thank you.
People may try to tell you otherwise, but don't believe them. You should always prioritize your health over your grades.
Uh-huh. Yep. And sometimes you get bosses that they don't care about your mental health. They just care about you showing up. I've had that happen before. And I'm my own boss.
Yeah.
Isn't that sad?
Joe, you should be a nicer boss to
I
yourself.
should be a nicer boss.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
If you can't be a nice enough boss to yourself, then you need to get a proxy boss. So like you'll be the boss of them, but they'll be the boss of you.
Oh, you want to be my boss?
Sure, I'll be your boss.
You be my boss. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Moonlit, and hopefully you've been helpful. But all right, we're gonna move on to good habits, bad habits from Improvement Station. Um, oh, Haley's now a BSS stakeholder. Oh boy, yep,
I wonder how Ryan would feel about this development.
he would love it. You're a mod on his server, so he would just be
That's true.
fine. But all right, so this is gonna be a good one. So I don't know who Improvement Station is, but if you're here and we can be helpful, then that would be great. I'm gonna put this topic up on the screen for you, and I'll also here you go, Haley.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. All right, here we go. So this is called Good Habits, Bad Habits from Improvement Station, and it reads as follows. What can I do to remember to start a new habit in the moment? I have a bad habit and a good solution, but whenever I do the bad habit, I don't even think of doing the solution in the moment. It's only later that I realize I should have done this or I've already thought about a solution to that. So, how do I remember to do the good habit instead of the bad one in the moment? And oh, thank you, Saleh. Thank you for posting the links. Yes, if you have a topic and we could use them, we don't have a whole lot of topics right now, but you can go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button, and do that. But anyway, so how can I remember to do a good habit instead of the bad habit when I'm in the moment of doing the bad habit? That's a good question, and it's tough. And I'll tell you, I think there are probably a few ways to go about this. There are a few ways to kind of remind yourself of these things. But one thing I think that is super duper important, especially when dealing with habits, is have a little grace with yourself. Have a little self forgiveness with yourself. Because if it's a habit and it's ingrained, you kind of do it automatically. And so habits are difficult to break, and you can't ever really break a habit. You have to replace it with a different habit, I've found. So if I find I have a bad habit, I'm like, all right, I need to stop doing this. Well, I can't just stop a bad habit. What I have to do is I have to think, okay, what am I going to do in place of this? And it sounds to me like you've already thought through this Improvement Station, like where you're like, okay, I have a solution and I have this good habit. Now it's a matter of remembering to do it in the moment. So you can program reminders for yourself. I don't if the habit includes a physical object, you can put a sign or a note or something on the physical object to remind you when you pick up that physical object and you look at it, like, okay, remember, do this instead. And you can do that instead. But really, it isn't always easy, especially if the bad habit includes some kind of an addiction. That can just compound and make it even more difficult. So, certain things, like if you some habits, I can give you specific advice on how to change those habits. But if we're just generalizing and saying, okay, we're looking at bad habits versus good habits, I would say post up reminders around you. And I would also have a calendar where I keep track of doing the good habit, where I'm like, all right, I did the good habit on this day and I put an X in the box, right? And I do the good habit the next day, I put an X in the box. And then I always try to have an X in the box for that day because I'm doing the good habit, right? So there's some things you can do, reminders you can place around you to help you. But yeah, that's kind of just to get started. Master Lay says a good thing to remember about bad habits is that they had to take some time to establish. So it's very justifiable to take some time while trying to get rid of it. Absolutely. And that's where, that a little bit of self-compassion, a little bit of grace and forgiveness with yourself can come in really handy. And understand, if you slip up, it's okay. And it's actually natural. And so then you can just try again, regroup and try again the next time. So I'm going to turn over to Haley. Haley's going to expound some wisdom, but I don't know. Haley, have you ever had a bad habit in your life?
You know, I know you like to think I'm perfect, but unfortunately, I am not. I am a flawed human being, and I do
What?
sometimes get bad habits.
What?
I know.
No.
I'm sorry to break your heart like this,
You,
Joe.
man, like, oh my gosh. You just shattered my whole world. I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
Well, one thing. Well, and see, sometimes like you don't even necessarily always have to have a bad habit, right? Like maybe there's just something that you want to do, be better at doing, and that like sometimes you need to build a good habit that way too. But like honestly, as Lily mentioned, like it takes time. So like really, you have to remember it's going to take time, but it also takes effort. You can't just be like, okay, I want to establish this habit, and then just expect it to establish itself. You do have to put in effort toward.
Toward what? Uh-oh. I think I lost your audio. Oh, there you
There
are.
you go.
Ah, yay. Welcome back.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So honestly, I think you're already on the right track with the fact that you're like remembering later. Like obviously your ideal is to remember in the moment, but the fact that you're already remembering later, like, oh, I wanted to do this in that moment instead, is already like a step forward because you're thinking of solutions, of ways to like stop some of these bad habits and replace them with better habits. And even though you're still, making mistakes, you are starting to recognize those mistakes. And so honestly, I think being consistent and continuing to reflect on like those moments and then what you could do better is a good way to start. Because honestly, like it's easy to be like, oh, well, I'll just do this next time, but it's hard to remember in the moment, and we're
Mm-hmm.
not always going to remember in the moment.
That's
And
very
so
true.
you just have to keep it reflecting, and then the more you reflect on it and the more you think about it, the easier it'll get to start doing it in the moment too. And
Mm-hmm.
so even if you like just remind yourself, like let's say you wake up in the morning and it's like, okay, let's go over what bad habits I have that I'm working on replacing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like what plan have I made to replace them? And
Sure.
just review what solutions you have, then it's already on your mind, like, and then throughout the day, then you can start to notice where some of these bad habits are popping up. And even if you want to like reflect, like in the morning or like in the evening, it's like, okay, when did I do these bad habits most, right? Then you can start to become aware of like what's kind of triggering these habits. And then once you become aware of the triggers, then you can start figuring out like those moments when it's going to be triggered and start working towards replacing it. Um, so yeah, so I think effort is important. Also consistency. You can't be like, okay, I'm gonna do this today, and then you succeed once, and you're like, sweet, I did it. You do have to like stay consistent in trying to build that good habit.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you build the good habit, you need to be consistent with it still because it's really easy to fall out of good habits.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially if you've used the good habit to replace a bad habit. If you don't stay consistent with that good habit, you could easily fall back into the bad habit.
That's true.
So, I think taking time, putting forth effort and consistency are important. And then again, being kind to yourself, being graceful, you're not always going to succeed. And even after you feel like you've established a good habit, you might slip up sometimes, but you shouldn't berate yourself over that. You should be like, okay, today I didn't do this the way I wanted to do it, but that doesn't mean I failed. That just means I have more to, like, I still need to work on this. And then you can keep the mindset of, okay, I'll do better next time. And then with doing that, keeping a positive mindset, it's going to prevent you from getting frustrated and feeling discouraged. Instead, you can keep a growth mindset and be like, okay, well, I can still grow. I'm still learning. And you know what? This is great. I have things to work on. Because, honestly, life is great when you're working on yourself. It's way better to like be like, okay, I should work on these things than just being like, life sucks and I don't know what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to find areas to work on. And so, Yeah, I really think, effort, consistency, those are key. Um, and then I liked what you were saying about like physical reminders. Another thought I had is like if some of these habits like you might do around other people, something you could do is maybe those people you trust, you could tell them like, hey, I'm working on trying to break this habit and like I want to replace it with this. And then when you tell them, then first of all that helps hold you accountable because it's like, okay, well now I've said it to someone, so it's more real.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you can like rely on them to help hold you accountable too, because then maybe like you might not notice what you're doing in the moment, but then they can be like, oh hey, look, you just did this, but you wanted to do this instead, right? And then they can kind of serve as a reminder as well. And so I think that's just another way to kind of help hold yourself accountable and get you on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
But so do you have any other thoughts, Joe?
Uh, maybe. Masterly
Maybe.
says, Masterly says, I don't have any issues with consistency. I'm constantly inconsistent. That's good. That's like,
No,
I'm
keep
pretty
them on their
positive.
toes.
I'm pretty positive that I'm negative. Right? So, hey, Kendra,
Oh,
welcome.
Kendra's here.
Good to see
Hello,
you.
Kendra.
Yeah, I have your urgent topic here, but we don't have time to go through it now. Because we're just about done. But yeah, maybe we can do it next week if you are around. But anyway, so yeah, anytime I've had to, uh, one of the resources that I got a lot from when it came to building habits was a book called The Miracle Morning. Is by a guy named Hal Elrod. So you can look that up, The Miracle Morning. Now, this particular book, you don't have to. I mean, this guy's talking about, okay, how do I set up my day to be super productive, to be really good, to be beneficial to me in all these different areas? How do I start my day right? And so he's got this whole morning routine and all this kind of stuff, right? But the thing, it, so I learned about having a morning routine that encompassed, reading, journaling, exercise, whatever, drinking water, you know, all these things were encompassed in here. But we're not talking about having a morning routine. What we're talking about is building a habit. And one of the things that he had in there was um there was like this, you signed a contract with yourself. Like all these things are very they might seem silly on the surface. But for me, when I looked at that and I like read this contract, I have stuff, I'm going to do this, blah 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 blah, and if I fail, it's okay. I'm just going to pick up and do it the next day. And then he had the little calendar where it's like, okay, mark off each day where you do it, and then just then review and see how many days you did it, how many days you missed, right? And these things are not put here so you can beat yourself up. That was the hardest problem I ever had because I'm so good at beating myself up. It's crazy. Like I can be my own worst enemy. Probably a lot, like a lot of you. Like it's fairly common. But
If you guys are mean to yourself, I'll pull out my self-love stick.
yes, Haley has a weapon, the self-love stick. Yep, and she's threatened me with the self-love stick before. So now you guys are all we could start a club, the self-love stick threat club.
There is a physical stick actually.
Nice. That's great. August says it's hard to be sad when you're eating a McFlurry. Are you eating a McFlurry right now?
You know what, August? I like this logic. I've always said that one of the best kinds of therapy, ice cream therapy.
Oh, yeah,
You know, in college, if I ever had a hard day, I would just eat ice cream. It was great.
it can help. Some of those things, they just make you feel better physically. You're like, oh yeah, and then
Well, I
everything
don't know if I don't know if ice cream makes you feel better physically,
in the moment it
but
does.
it.
All that sugar, you feel great. You're like a Coke addict at that moment because all that sugar. It's like, yeah, endorphins and stuff. It's great. Ice cream therapy is the cheapest non-insurance covered option. Yeah. If now here's the thing, if you do it too much though, you can end up with some health problems,
Yes,
right?
it is not a replacement for actual therapy.
Yes, ice cream therapy. Dang it. I was hoping I could just go eat a bunch of ice cream and then never have to go to the doctor.
Well, you already got the second half of that statement
Ha
covered.
ha. Thanks. Um, all right. Um but so anyway, so the thing that was important in there is what he talked about, what Hal Elrod talked about. He said it takes 35 days to establish a habit. 35 days in a row, basically, to establish this habit. Or, like, I don't know, I'm a big proponent of Sunday being a day of rest. And so a lot of times for most everything in my life on Sunday, I basically take off and I don't do things. I got to have one day where I just don't do anything. But anyway, so he talked about, okay, a lot of people say it takes a month or 4 weeks, 28 days. Said, yes, there's truth in that. 28 days consistently doing a good habit kind of gets it in there. And he says, but he gives it an extra week and says it goes to 35 because the 28 days just establishes it. That last fifth week locks it in. And he was right. Because I read this book. What year did I read this book? I wasn't even a Catholic yet. So it must have been like 8 or 9 years ago that I read this. And I did it. I did the 35 days. So like 8 or 9 years later, I'm still doing a morning routine similar to what he had laid out in that book. I've modified it a little bit. I've changed things around. I've changed the order of what I do things in. But there's a consistency still every day of getting up, doing some kind of exercise. Most days, I have an exercise regimen where I generally work out 4 days a week, right? But so there's some kind of exercise, even if it's just stretching. There's reading in there. There's journaling in there. And it's still this habit that got set up that long ago, and I still have it to this day. It's crazy. But you have to give yourself some patience. You have to give yourself a little bit of grace. Understand it's not necessarily going to be easy to do this. And maybe you're already discovering that this is not easy. And maybe that's why you're asking. Because, yeah, it's not easy. But I'll tell you, the way I feel when I am performing a good habit, even though a lot of times a good habit takes a lot more effort and you think it's going to be uncomfortable, or whatever, but the bad habit might bring you more immediate pleasure in the moment, right? But the problem is, most of the time, immediate pleasure is somewhat empty. And as soon as it's gone, you feel empty, you feel sad, you feel like you moved backwards. When you are performing a good habit, you will feel energized. You will feel like you accomplished something. Your self-esteem will grow. There's all kinds of benefits to this. And so it really comes down to, am I going to chase discipline or am I going to chase pleasure? Because, and I'm not saying not to do things that cause pleasure. Like we talk about ice cream, right? Ice cream brings you pleasure. It's okay to eat ice cream, right? To eat ice cream all the time might lead to some bad things in your life, but it's not bad to do things that bring pleasure to you. However, if we start chasing pleasure and neglect discipline, we end up sadder, we end up more depressed, we end up not accomplishing as much, we end up more in a just kind of a dumpy state, like negative state. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that well, I don't know. I've found that discipline, it creates this air about you. It creates this aura about you that you're just like, okay, I do what I say I'm going to do. I finish the things I start. When I say I'm going to do something, I follow through. And that's one of the things I learned. I heard a guy talk and he said, if I was going to teach my kid one thing, what would it be? And he said, teach him discipline. Not not discipline your child, like keep spanking him and whipping him and whatever, but no, teach your child self-discipline, how to be disciplined and how to do these things, because what that does is it creates just a better life overall. You will feel better more when you have discipline in your life. Master Lay, there's always pleasure to be found in discipline. There's a lot of positivity to be found in realizing self progress. You're absolutely right. There is. But it's you know, I would consider that a more lasting, pleasing, good feeling, not just, pleasure that comes and it's fleeting and it's gone. And then when it's gone, you feel more empty. And then you're just chasing more pleasure. Um, but yeah, and your brain is not braining. I feel you, man. It's okay. But anyway, that's basically it. Like, it takes discipline, it takes consistency, and if you have to post all up, if you have to set reminders on your phone, if you have to set alarms to remind you of certain things, if you have to, put notes everywhere to remind you, just try and always keep it in your face that you're trying to do this. And that way, it'll always be there on your mind. And then when you're faced with the bad habit or the good habit, when you're faced with that choice, if you have reminders in front of you, it might be easier to choose the good over the bad. You will definitely find yourself having more of a choice when you do this. Because a lot of times when we just do the bad habit over and over and over again, it feels like it's automatic, like there's no choice involved, right? But when you continually remind yourself of the good habit through whatever medium you want, whether it's writing stuff down or putting it on your phone or whatever, you'll find that more and more you're faced with the choice of doing the bad habit or the good habit. And when you become aware of the choice, then, I don't know. There have been a lot of times in my life where it's like, yep, I have a choice of either doing this good thing or this bad thing. I'm doing the bad thing and I don't care right now. I've definitely done that before. It's just like, you know what? I know it's the wrong choice, but I'm doing it anyway. And that's why I'm glad that I'm a Catholic and we have confession, because I can go to confession. but but anyway, um yeah, that's basically it. But the more you've discovered you have a choice, the more times you're creating the option for choosing the good habit. And only through developing the good habit will you finally be rid of the bad one. At least that's what I've found. I don't know. If you guys can stop a bad habit without creating a good one, I admire you. I've never been able to do it. So, anyway, that's what I got. Haley, you got anything else?
Yeah, I think that you've done a real good job with covering this one.
Well, you did too.
Oh, thank you.
You had stuff to say too. It wasn't just me. Silly.
No, clearly it was Joe. Joe was like speaking through me.
Oh, that's right. Because you're just AI Haley, right?
Yeah,
Haley
yeah, I'm
AI.
AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe
Oh,
programmed me.
well, AI is in your name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm not real.
Yep. Haley is AI. I'm just Joe, right? So, like,
That's why sometimes when you see me on stream, it says my name isn't Haley. Sometimes it might say like I'm Joe or I'm Static P.
oh, right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because you're the AI.
yeah.
Nope, your intelligence is real, my friend. It is not artificial. Oh,
No, I like to think so.
yep.
It would be impressive if artificial intelligence were to be at this level.
Yeah. I don't know. AI can be some pretty helpful stuff,
It
but
can.
it doesn't replace a person.
No, it
It
really
really
does
doesn't.
not.
Nope.
My favorite is when it tells you blatantly wrong things.
That's cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember it's so funny. We looked up in AI when we started our cabinet company. We were like, okay, like let's just ask Chat GPT or whatever, like what kind of marketing strategies we could have, right?
hmm
For because we're getting new and established in the area, blah 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 blah. And like there were all these weird things. They're like, yeah, have an ice cream social, and invite people in the neighborhood to come and hand out your brochures and da 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 da. And I'm like, I can't see myself doing that at all, ever. Like, I'm an introvert. I'm not gonna have an ice cream social.
like free ice cream with each cabinet purchase.
Yeah, right. Yeah, boy, that'd be an expensive ice cream. I'll tell you what, cabinets are not cheap. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Between me and my brother does fuel delivery. You know,
hmm
there is so much money that passes through their hands on a regular basis. Like, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars per month passing through their hands. Now, they don't keep it because they just collect for the fuel they deliver, and then they got to go buy the next fuel shipment, right? So it's like most of it
hmm
just goes and it gets revolving. But yeah, it's crazy. Like when you own a business and you're like, oh my gosh, these things cost so much money. Ridiculous.
You know, yeah. I was sitting in a meeting with the professor I've been working for the past few years,
Uh huh.
and our fancy microscope, one of the lasers is broken on it right now.
Mm.
Um, the quote the company gave us to repair the laser is like $30,000,
Yeah.
which is a lot of money.
And that's just
You know,
that that's just
that's
the
just the
one
laser.
part.
Yeah,
Yep. Don't break it.
and yeah, and it's like the microscope is expensive enough that it's worth it to replace that one part for $30,000.
Yeah.
There's a reason they don't let undergrads use that microscope because they don't want it breaking.
Right? This costs as much as a year of your tuition and classes and fees and everything. Right?
Actually, my tuition's really cheap. It's way more than a year of my tuition.
Oh, okay. Cool.
It's
I don't
like,
know.
well, I guess it's probably like a little more than three times the amount of my tuition.
Okay. Hey, you did good.
Yeah, but you know what? My tuition was basically free anyways because of scholarships. So
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, Haley's the only person I've ever seen get 3,000% on a on
that
an assignment.
was funny. You know what, Joe? In my astronomy class that I mentioned that I took this last semester, my
Uh-huh.
final grade in that class was like 106%.
Really?
That's in a college class.
Wow. And one that didn't even pertain to your major.
Yeah,
You just took it
it's
and you
great.
got 106%.
Yep.
Yeah. Marhandi's asking, how did you get 3,000%? I don't even I just remember seeing you sent the
You know,
picture.
I still have that screenshot. Actually, I have the proof of it.
Yeah.
It's great. So I guess the story. So it was on an assignment in my Japanese class. Um, it was like during COVID or whatever. So we had like some take home assignments, and then I guess there was like extra credit offered, and I did the extra credit, and I guess I did enough extra credit that it was worth 3,000%.
Dang.
It was beautiful.
All the way to
I think I
3,000.
got like a 500% on one of the other assignments. I think if you look at the screenshot, there's like a 3,000% and a 500%.
Yeah, but you don't even really notice the 500% because the 3000% is right there, and you're just like, that's the only one I can see. You know, it's like, how do you
Yeah,
get 3000%?
you know, it was
That's
great.
thirty
I
thirty
love to pull
times
up
a
the
100.
screenshot.
Yes. Oh, and Master Lay, that's great advice. Never ever ask Chat GPT for legal stuff, even out of curiosity. Um, yeah, if you're in a position where you need legal advice, probably talk to a lawyer.
I will
Just
say, from my experience, it's also not great at biochemistry.
oh, for Chat GPT?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Wix. How's it going? Good to see you.
Hello, hello.
I don't even think I don't know if I've seen you before. Welcome. Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. We're just shutting down actually. Um so yeah, cuz it is that time. But thanks for coming. We do this every Wednesday, so we'll probably be here next Wednesday too, unless something crazy happens. But yeah, the next few weeks is gonna be me, and it might just be me and Haley every time. I don't know. I had a really good time, so I'm gonna just
Yeah.
invite Haley back. What do you guys think? You think I'll just invite Haley back again for the next few weeks? Maybe Haley, and then Haley can take my job, and it can be Haley and Ryan.
I don't want to steal your job, Joe.
What's that?
I said, I don't want to steal your job.
Well, no, I'd be giving it.
You'd
Wouldn't
be
be
giving it.
stealing.
I see, I see.
I mean, seriously though, like Haley's far better looking.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people seem to love to talk about your bald head.
I mean, it is beautiful. It's very round. I have a very
Yeah.
round head. It's good for bald. I got called Walter White today.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
That's fun.
Because I sent a picture of me, working in the shop, and
Oh,
like,
yeah, yeah. All
they're
you're
like,
missing is like the tenting, right?
"What's that?"
I said all you're missing is like the tenting, right? Or whatever.
I
I've never actually seen Breaking Bad, but I
uh,
heard that he would like tent people's houses like you would if you were like getting rid of bugs.
oh, that was one, like, for a while. That's what they did. Yeah. Yep. And
You know what though?
that's where they would do the cooking. Yeah.
I may have never seen Breaking Bad, but I was taught during my degree how to make meth.
Wow. You taught how to make meth.
They did teach us that, yeah. We never
Oh,
had to
good.
try it, but they did teach us.
They taught you how to do it. Good. Now you know.
Yeah,
There's some knowledge you can learn at college. Some knowledge from college.
exactly.
Meth cooking.
So now you know if the government decides not to fund us anymore, and then I can't get a job like doing like whatever, right? Then I have something to fall back on.
Haley is the new Walter White.
Either that, or I also did a floral design class, and that was actually kind of fun. And I've learned you can make good money as a floral designer.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh. I did not know that. I mean, I've seen florist shops that have been in business forever, so I would imagine they'd be able to do
yeah.
well.
Especially if you can get involved in doing wedding flowers, you can make a lot of money from wedding flowers.
Yeah, that's true. Part of that's probably
Like,
because, like, you can always charge more when it's for a wedding just because everybody's like, oh, yeah, it's going to be expensive and we have to have the perfect day and da 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 and blah, blah, blah. And,
yeah. Well, I think
whatever. But
retail prices, like, I think the standard for the industry is retail price is like 300% of the wholesale price.
that's a good markup.
Yeah.
We don't mark our cabinets up that much. Jeez.
Well, cabinets are already really expensive. I feel like if you marked them up 300%, you wouldn't be selling them.
Dude, probably not. Probably not. Yep. That's pretty wild. Wait, Master, you're going to sign up to be Jesse? You have your own private domicile, so that's got to amount for something. Yep. We can put our server in your house, and you can pay for the internet. I'm just kidding. um,
Jesse also was the developer of like TurtleBot, right? Is
Turtlebot.
that Jesse? Maybe not.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't remember.
Yeah, me neither.
There's a lot of people in the server.
Yep. Jesse's a great guy. I haven't talked to him in a long time. Dang. Um, yeah. Practical life skills. Yes, practical life skills of cooking meth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Haley, you don't have a beard. You need to grow a beard.
You know, I'll get working on it.
Yeah, that's yep. Work on that. But first do the fluorescent thing. I think that would be more fun.
You know, I also think it would be more fun.
Yes.
If I survive it, then maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll start offering it as a business. You know, people would see it and they would be like, "That's so cool! I want that."
Yes. I want to go play laser tag in the black light and have everybody shoot me all the time because I glow.
Okay, but you know what? We could choose a different one that's not going to work under blacklight. We could have one that would make you glow under the sun.
But then would people notice?
I mean, theoretically, because here's the thing, right? So we have a cell line, we have it fluorescent. It's like technically a red fluorescent protein, but it looks pink.
Uh-huh.
The cells, when we look at ones that haven't been transfected with the like red fluorescent protein versus the ones that do in our lab, the pellets of the cells, one will be white, the other is actually visibly pink. Like you can see that it's a pink pellet of cells.
Wow. So then if I'm out in the sun, I'm always going to look sunburnt?
Yeah.
Perfect. I don't have I don't have trouble like looking sunburnt because I easily get sunburnt. But
Or no, there's like blue fluorescent proteins that could be kind of fun.
yeah.
I don't remember what like blue would react under, but
Yeah. Well, you have to figure all this out and then offer it. Yep.
yeah.
Create a business, lighten people up. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Only at the cost of potentially ruining some of your genetic information.
Yeah, like what do you need that for?
And it's only like, I mean, think of it this way, right? The amount of DNA we have that doesn't actually hold important genetic information is a lot.
Really?
Like, you have a lot of DNA that's not actually like important stuff.
Huh.
And so the chance of the virus messing up the important stuff isn't that high. It's a risk, sure, but it's not that high.
Yeah, it's yeah. Oh, you're crazy. Haley is crazy, man. Tell you what. But that's why we love her. But all right.
I think it comes with being a biochemist.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you get exposed to stuff like that, how do you not want to take some adventurous risk, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I'm turning my cells fluorescent. Why can't I make myself fluorescent?
Right. I am
My
made up
cells
of
survive
cells,
it.
right?
Yeah, the cells in our labs survive it mostly.
Survive. Mostly they do. Every
Yeah, they
once in a
mostly survive.
while.
Now, granted, the cells in our lab are also mostly cancer cells, but
Oh. Well, so you got to get yourself some cancer first.
no, I mean, it doesn't have to be cancer. I'm just saying that because they're cancer cells, they tend to survive better.
Oh, gotcha.
So, like, they don't die as easily.
Gotcha. They're very resilient.
When I've worked when I've worked with primary cells, so like cells that we just harvested from lung tissue, those cells are not happy cells. They really love to die.
Well, especially when you try and turn them fluorescent colors.
Yeah.
They don't
You know,
like
I don't
that.
think they would survive
They
that
don't
process.
they don't like that.
No, they really don't.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? The thing that kills so many people is one of the most resilient things. Become a fluorescent adolescent.
Mm,
There you go. We even got a cool name. The fluorescent adolescent.
exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, you guys. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. I'm really glad that you joined us. We're gonna wrap up this show for tonight, but come back next Wednesday. We'll plan on being here. Again, Static P will not be back for a few more weeks, but you'll have me, and possibly Haley, possibly another guest. It kind of depends on if Haley's available or not. Uh, we'll find out. But anyway, you guys are amazing. We love you. And come back next time for Don't Worry Wednesday. If you have a topic you'd like us to do, go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button, and then fill out that form. And then we would be happy to discuss whatever it is you send our way, even if it's politics. You might get a really weird bit of advice that's not what you would find on most of the mainstream media outlets. But we'll talk about it.
That just means you're giving them different perspective.
That's right. That's right. Because you don't follow all the stuff, right? All the political stuff. Yeah, me neither. I don't either. So it's like we're gonna have all kinds of great advice and perspectives.
Exactly.
Yeah. We are so.
It'll be unbiased by the media.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah. We're so uninformed, and we're gonna show it. It's gonna be great. And you're gonna be like, man, at least I know more than they do. Yes, that's true, you do. But we'll
you know what though? It would be good self-esteem boosting for them.
That's right. That's right. I did that. I was playing in Valorant one time, and I accidentally got in a competitive match in Valorant, and I'm not very good at it. And they're like, oh man, our neon really sucks, blah 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 blah. And I was just like, hey, look, I'm just here for your self-esteem, so you can feel good about your ability to play, right?
Yeah.
You'd be like, at least you're not the worst one on the team. I am.
That's me in most games.
Yes, it's a good spot to be, right? You help everybody feel better about themselves. It's good.
Exactly. And then you laugh at yourself, and then it's great.
That's right. You're like, man, I'm terrible, but it's just a game. I can be terrible at that.
New wasn't on my bucket list.
Did I do that? Did I say so?
I don't remember you saying that.
Oh, cool.
Oh, you did when you read it.
Nyum. Yep, there you go. Oh, the neon. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah, because that was my character, right? Neon. She's fast. She's got the speed.
I've never played Valorant.
I've
played many games. Valorant is not one of them.
I don't know. It's a shooter. I like shooters. I like shooter games.
Yeah, I've played quite a few shooters. I am not good at them.
Yeah, I'm not that good at them either. I'm better at Marvel Rivals because there's a lot of different skills, and you don't always necessarily have to be good at aiming.
Oh, I see.
In Valorant, you have to be good at aiming.
I like to blame my computer setup though, because I have a gaming laptop, right? But still just a laptop, right? So it's not a PC. And then I'm using like a $20 Bluetooth mouse most of the time.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Not like a great mouse. And then like a lot of times I play on like a portable desk with an attachable mouse pad, so it's like not even like a nice like setup.
Oh, geez.
So I like to just pretend like it's actually my setup that makes me bad.
Yeah.
And I can stay in denial. I mean, maybe, but I was like, I can stay in denial up until I get a nice setup, and then when I still suck, then I can no longer blame it on the setup.
I mean, you could. You'd just be lying.
Yeah. But like, at least for now, it's reasonable to say it could be the setup.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're right. You are right. Excuse me. All right. Well, you guys. All right, we're gonna get going. But thank you guys for being here so much. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Come back next week and hang out with us some more. We're gonna have a good time. And yeah, we love you guys. And we'll see you next time on Don't Worry Wednesday. Haley, thank you so much for being here. Yeah,
thanks for having me.
You are great. You are wonderful. I'm so happy you were able to. So, all right, you guys have a wonderful week, and until next time, take really good care of yourselves and of the people around you, and we'll see you next week on Don't Worry Wednesday. We love you guys.
Bye. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.